Okay. I would like to thank you for our meeting tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. And those that are still a bit late will join us as we go along. But you that are here, thank you very much for joining us. So we're going to speak about the blockchain for our meeting tonight. As we always do, I would like to give the word first to the chairman, Mr. Mark Mpasa. Then later on, I will introduce you to Mr. James Miti that will give us our blockchain tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Merci beaucoup, Papa Edouard. Merci d'être venu à cette session du 31 juillet. Merci à M. James Miti d'avoir accepté de nous accompagner dans la discussion aujourd'hui. So we thank Mr. Miti for accepting to share with us this evening. CoopCongo is the financial cooperative for the people of Congo in Southern Africa, and we want it to be the bank for all Congolese around the world. So our short introduction will lead to Mr. Miti sharing the blockchain, then we will have questions. As an introduction, we are still in the norming phase, which will finish very soon. The vision is really to be that bank for the people of Congo. Donc, nous voulons être la banque des Congolais en Afrique du Sud et dans le monde. Et nous devrions travailler avec la Banque centrale de l'Afrique du Sud. So we're working with the central bank, the Reserve Bank of South Africa, where we were required to have a minimum of 200 members, which we already have, and 100,000 rand in the bank account. We are way beyond that. Our shares, we have 2 million shares issued. Donc, nous avons 2 millions de parts. And so far, less than 1 million are remaining. Donc, on a moins d'1 million qui reste et nous sommes sûrs que d'ici là, tout va partir. Donc, les produits que nous avons pour nos membres, les produits d'épargne, les produits de crédit et les produits communautaires. So, saving products, saving account, check account, fixed products. A credit product, we will have long-term loans, short-term loans, and community products. Nous avons les medical assistance et les funeral assistance. Le funeral assistance, ce n'est pas une assurance, mais c'est un arrangement communautaire pour que nous puissions nous entraider dans les incidents funéraires. Ce produit est déjà fini. Nous allons l'activer d'ici là dès que les papiers sont prêts. Alors, du point de vue de l'éducation, nous continuons et vous voyez que depuis un certain temps, la Banque centrale nous envoie beaucoup de workshops et il nous demande que nos membres puissent participer. For some time now, the CBDA from the central bank, the Reserve Bank, is sending us a lot of workshops for us to distribute to our members. And as part of the education, the Reserve Bank is also training 3 of our directors on how to run the cooperative bank. So they started last week. This will go up to November. Donc, nous avons 3 de nos directeurs qui sont enrôlés dans un cours à la Banque centrale. Nous avons notre secrétaire général et 2 autres qui sont enrôlés à ce cours-là pour la gestion de la coopérative. Donc, pour l'éducation, nous continuons aussi avec nos membres toutes les 2 semaines. So we're carrying on with our members every 2 weeks so that we get stronger as we evolve. Quara Connect, please get yourself registered so that you can see your account. Donc, veuillez vous enregistrer à Quara Connect. Il y a le support sur WhatsApp et dans le groupe. Donc, nous souhaitons que les membres puissent accéder à leur compte à travers Quora. Les parts sont encore là, à dire de la part. Comme j'ai indiqué, il y a moins d'1 million. Donc, nous sommes sûrs que d'ici là, nous saurons donner les crédits, les prêts à nos membres, mais c'est lié aussi aux parts. Voilà, ça c'est notre introduction. Merci beaucoup, M. Njeka. À vous l'antenne pour que nous puissions passer à la suite de l'activité aujourd'hui. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Just to clarify a little bit on the training that the chairman said, the Reserve Bank is sponsoring us with University of Johannesburg. I've never studied at the University of Johannesburg, but by the end of this year, I will have a diploma or a certificate that I didn't pay for, but the Reserve Bank paid for me. Thank you very much, CoopCongo, for this. And I would like now to introduce Mr. James Miti, who will speak to us about the blockchain. I just want to let you know, James, that as you see, we do have our members all the way as Switzerland, Paris, and so on. So they speak French. That's why you'll see we mix French and English as we conduct our meetings. Who is Mr. James? He's a lawyer, a commercial lawyer. He's practicing commercial law, very strong in financial experience and a modern financial technologist. So, Monsieur James pratique, il est juriste dans le domaine du commerce, des entreprises. Il est expérimenté dans ce que nous appelons aujourd'hui finance moderne. C'est pourquoi il va nous parler aujourd'hui sur la technologie de la monnaie qui est aujourd'hui dans le monde. So I would like to welcome you, James, and the floor is yours. You can now speak to our audience as we usually do. Toward the end, then the audience will ask questions. But today we're speaking about the blockchain. In 2 weeks' time, Mr. James will come to us to speak to us about cryptocurrency. Invite as many people as possible because this is where the world is going. And us as CoopCongo, we also want to go where the world is going, and we want all our members and our friends, members to know where the world is going with money and we're dealing with money. Thank you very much. And James, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Eddie, for that very warm introduction. It's a privilege and an honor to be here and to be given the opportunity to speak to CoopCongo. I am conscious that it's a Sunday and people have things to do. So thank you for taking your time to come and learn something new. I hope I can honor you by delivering that knowledge that we have come to seek. If at any point you would like me to stop so that somebody can join, somebody can translate, I'll be fine with that. I don't need to work at a very fast pace. So just interrupt me, let me know. And then a translator can go ahead and translate. I'm going to share my screen with you. I've got a very short presentation. And most of, as you'll see here in my commitments, I ensure that after we have spoken today, you'll all have at least a conversational knowledge on how the blockchain works in a practical way. And if you ask any questions at the end of the Q&A and I'm not able to answer that question, I'll let you know that I can't answer the question. I don't want to spread any false information. So just bear with me on that. When we speak about the blockchain, it is so broad, it's almost like asking somebody to come and talk about money or to come and talk about finance. It's very difficult to shrink whatever knowledge a person has about money into 1 hour, because some people feel money is a spiritual concept. Some people don't really know how to separate money from love. Some people see money as something that's completely tangible. And all of these people would be true, because money depends on what it means to that individual. It's the same with the blockchain. When we start speaking about it, it seems very simple, but it branches out into various areas of life and the economy. And in those branches, I rely on your questions in order to kind of guide me into what's more important for you guys in terms of what you want to know. So for this hour, 100% of my industry knowledge I will share with you because we're in the beginning stages of blockchain adoption, which means at this stage, anybody who has knowledge should do their duty to share that knowledge freely so that the industry can move forward and people can jump on board. So as said, due to the vast nature of how the blockchain works, this presentation relies heavily on the questions that you will have, or the questions that you will ask. So I ask you in return to not hold back on your questions, no matter what we speak about, whether I'm speaking about finance or technology. If you think it applies to something to you specifically, please go ahead and ask the question. And I'm sure we'll all be able to learn from that. Eddie, when it comes to translations, do you want to be translating after every slide, or should I just carry on in English?
I think the chairman will be doing the translations, because I've worked just in the middle of our presentation, so I will be leaving a bit soon. So I would like to leave that to my chairman to do the translation. Yes, chairman.
Thanks, James. I think let's go by slides. It's better. Okay, James est un juriste commercial. Il pourra nous parler du blockchain. C'est une connaissance industrielle, c'est vaste, mais il demande à ce que nous puissions poser le plus de questions possibles. C'est ça qui ferait que nous ayons une richesse dans les échanges. Thanks, James.
Thank you very much. Okay, so before we begin, I would like to just ask, is there anybody in the room, you can just use a show of hands or you can unmute yourself, who has interacted with the blockchain, or anybody here who already holds cryptocurrency or has traded cryptocurrency, sent it to someone? Is there anyone in the room with that knowledge here?
Est-ce qu'il y a, si vous pouvez montrer avec la main si vous avez une connaissance sur les blockchains, ou bien si vous avez fait une interaction avec les blockchains? Okay,
See,
there's a few hands. Yeah.
Yes, I see there are a few hands here. So, and to start with, I just want to let you know that the two of you and whoever else might have interacted with the blockchain and maybe didn't know, you all form part of the first 1% of people on the planet who have interacted with the blockchain. According to Forbes, currently 0.71% of the world, that's about 65 million people, have engaged with the blockchain. And as you know, when it comes to adoption rates, when you're early, you have many benefits of being early in terms of maybe financial gain or just the knowledge of where the world is going, but the world doesn't know it yet. So count yourselves lucky, count yourselves to be technologists and futurists as well, because you beat 90% of the world in getting to this blockchain technology.
Donc, James dit que jusque-là, il y a il y a 1% à peu près de personnes à travers le monde qui sont en train d'interagir sur les blockchains.
So I'd like to start off with just a small practical demonstration of one of the uses of the blockchain. The blockchain has many uses, but one of them that a lot of people know about is obviously facilitating payments. So I'm not sure if my assistant is here. Michelle, are you in? If you are, please just turn on your camera and show me the QR code so I can show our group of people what we're trying to do here.
I'm still trying to turn on my camera.
Okay, no problem with that. We'll leave that for later. As soon as you're ready, just jump in and let me know, and then you'll share the QR code with me. Okay, cool. So best place to start with any new concept is with the definition. So I've tried to simplify the definition of the blockchain as best as I can. What you will see here is a blockchain is a distributed database that maintains a continuously growing list of records called blocks. These blocks are linked using cryptography. Each block contains a cryptographic hash, the previous block, a timestamp, and transaction data. The blockchain basically is a decentralized, distributed, and public digital ledger that is used to record transactions across many different computers, and the record cannot be altered retroactively. Here's some background music there. Just remember to mute yourself if you're not speaking, just so that we don't disturb anybody. So blockchain is the key technology behind Bitcoin. Normally people confuse the two, Bitcoin and blockchain. Bitcoin operates on the blockchain, but it's not necessarily the blockchain itself. It's a new network that helps decentralize trade and allows for more peer-to-peer transactions. So all of this that we've read here, in summary, a blockchain is a ledger system. It's a record system. So it is used to record transactions or any kind of data in a way that makes it permanent, and it cannot be altered after that.
Okay, let me just say, la chaîne des blocs, c'est une base de données distribuée qui contient des blocs qui sont liés utilisant la cryptographie. Chaque bloc a une information du bloc précédent, comme un tampon. Et les blocs sont distribués dans un carnet public qui enregistre les transactions à travers beaucoup d'appareils informatiques pour que ça ne puisse pas être altéré rétroactivement. Donc, la blockchain, c'est la technologie sur laquelle Bitcoin fonctionne, qui est un réseau décentralisé de commercialisation et permet des transactions entre qui sont liées de pair en pair. Merci.
So one of the questions that people have about the blockchain is who owns it and where did it come from? So the blockchain was initially created to facilitate the Bitcoin system by someone called Satoshi. We don't at this moment know who Satoshi is. Satoshi Nakamoto was the name that he was going by, but we don't necessarily know who he or she or they are. Sometimes a group of programmers come together. They create work and they create the work under the name of one person, but it's not necessarily that one person had done it. So this is an email that Mr. or Mrs. or they, Satoshi Nakamoto, sent out on the 11th of February, 2009. And as written here, he was describing, I've developed a new open source peer-to-peer e-cash system called Bitcoin. It's completely decentralized with no central server or trusted parties because everything is based on crypto proof instead of trust. And he attached a link there to the design. The email then went to carry on to say that the root problem with conventional currency is all the trust. So I'm going to stop there for a while just to allow Eddie to translate it, also to explain the issue with the way we exchange money right now is that we place a lot of trust in the banks. When money moves from one person to another, it can move between 2 or 3 different banks, depending on where you are in the location. And we as individuals, we trust that the bank will assign the money to the person that needs the money.
OK. la chaîne des blocs a commencé avec une source qui est très peu connue. Il y a un email de Satoshi Nakamoto qui avait été envoyé. On ne sait pas si c'est un homme, une femme ou un groupe. Et puis, bon, après, ils ont essayé d'expliquer. Donc, ce n'est pas exactement qui est le propriétaire, mais ils ont voulu résoudre un problème où les transactions financières à travers le monde sont permises avec une confiance des banques. Maintenant, pour décentraliser ça, pour que ça soit libéralisé, il faut qu'ils ont créé un système qui enlève la confiance des banques et le met dans les systèmes, les systèmes pour que les systèmes entre eux puissent donner la confiance et non les banques. Merci.
One of Satoshi's concerns also was that the big overheads of very, very large banks, for example, make microtransactions impossible. So when you're moving very large amounts of money, it might be financially worthwhile. But if I'm sending money to somebody on the street to buy bread or a drink or some eggs, I can't send that man an EFT for R5. Those transactions are too small. It's not going to be feasible. His email also read that the result of a distributed system with no single point of failure, users hold the crypto keys to their own money and transact directly with each other with the help of a peer-to-peer network to check for double spending. So we use, when we're talking about cryptocurrencies and specifically, which is something we'll speak about at a later stage, people often refer to cryptocurrencies as something that is disrupting the banking system. So oftentimes the example is, this is how cryptocurrencies work versus this is how traditional finance or how the banks work. And we all know when it comes to moving money between banks, there's no physical asset that's moved between the two banks. It's basically a ledger system. So if you send money to a friend, your bank will register that you do not own the money anymore and reduce your bank balance by that amount. And then your friend, their balance will increase by an equal amount. And the bank basically records that the money now belongs to the next person. There's no cash that is shipped to the next person. Of course, the next person can turn that bank balance, those numbers, into physical money at an ATM or in the branch. But what is really going on when it comes to human beings exchanging and trading is that we are all just agreeing that I no longer own this thing. And we are all agreeing that this thing is now owned by a second person. And that can keep moving around and around and around. And that just makes the financial system a lot easier. So what Satoshi Nakamoto's vision was, is that when I want to transfer ownership of what I have to you, I don't need to involve anybody else. And that is what's meant by peer-to-peer. So the money, the assets, whatever it is, moves from me straight to you. Nobody else gets involved. Nobody else needs to know about it. Nobody else needs to facilitate it. How is this possible? It's possible because of a technological program called the blockchain that is not a human being, but a software that sits in the middle and records. James no longer has 200 Rand and Michelle now has 200 Rand more. And that is at a simple level how the blockchain works. But we're going to move forward into the slides just to dive deeper into some of the small definitions and words that we've used here. Merci.
OK, donc le problème, c'est que pour les grandes banques qui échangent les grands montants, il fallait trouver, il n'y a pas moyen de faire échanger des petits montants dans ces grandes banques. Si quelqu'un veut acheter un pain, par exemple, qui est à 50, c'est difficile de faire passer ça à travers les banques. Donc, en créant un système où les gens peuvent échanger leur argent ou leur propriété, c'est-à-dire que quelqu'un peut se dire, j'ai une voiture, je donne à quelqu'un d'autre, à James, à travers un software. Le software qui est la blockchain, c'est une écriture qui part d'une entité à l'autre, d'une personne à l'autre. C'est ainsi que les banques, par exemple, quand ils échangent l'argent entre eux, ils n'utilisent pas, ce n'est pas le cash qui s'échange, mais ce sont des écritures qui vont d'une banque à l'autre ou d'une compagnie à l'autre. Et c'est ça que les créateurs de blockchain ont voulu, que les personnes et les institutions puissent faire des transactions entre elles sans qu'il y ait une troisième personne, une troisième partie. C'est-à-dire que si vous avez un asset ou de l'argent, vous pouvez transmettre ça à une autre personne et c'est le secret, c'est entre vous deux. Vous n'avez pas besoin d'une troisième entité. Merci.
Thank you very much. Some key concepts when we want to talk about the blockchain that separates it from everything else is one, of course, that it is decentralized. And this means that the middleman has been replaced by software. So the end user, you and I, we have 100% control of our assets. We are not putting them in another institution and asking this institution to divide the assets. The assets stay with us. The second concept, blocks. Now, blocks contain transactional data. So when you send money, when you transfer ownership to somebody else, that information that says the ownership is no longer mine and now belongs to somebody else, it's put in something called a block. A block can have a list of many different transactions, but that's how we get the name blockchain. And I say transactional data because people tend to use the blockchain to transact, but there's all sorts of data that can be recorded on the blockchain. For example, medical records can be put on the blockchain. Your degrees, your qualifications can also be put on the blockchain, et cetera, et cetera. The third key concept is that it is permissionless. So as the name suggests, you don't have to ask anybody for permission to use the blockchain. It is public use. Bitcoin, for example, is the most popular cryptocurrency that operates on a permissionless blockchain. Anyone can participate in the capacity of a transactor, in the capacity of a node, which means you are allowing information to pass through your computer, and anybody can mine Bitcoin. There is no barriers to entry. The fourth concept is that it is trustless. So a core element of blockchain and crypto payments and smart contracts is that it's trustless, which means you don't have to trust a third party, a bank or a notary or an intermediary that could operate between you and the cryptocurrency transactions. There's no need for that trust. And as a former lawyer, the concept of a smart contract is very important. Normally, when you want to ensure that something happens, you might go to a lawyer to create a contract for you, and you're trusting that that lawyer has the correct information and knowledge to enforce that contract if the person you're working with reaches on your agreement. So when we're talking about smart contracts, the computer program can initiate a transaction for you based off of some predetermined conditions. I'll be able to give you an example just now. Merci, please translate.
OK, les concepts et les définitions de la chaîne des blocs, c'est que c'est décentralisé. Donc, les personnes qui faisaient objet d'intermédiaires sont remplacées par un logiciel et les usagers ont maintenant 100% contrôle de leur propriété, de ce qu'ils possèdent, de leur possession. Le deuxième point, c'est les blocs. C'est une structure qui contient la nature des transactions. Ça peut être l'argent, ça peut être les informations médicales, ça peut être vos diplômes. C'est toutes sortes d'éléments qui peuvent entrer dans ce bloc pour constituer un élément de transaction. Il y a aussi le troisième point, c'est qu'il n'y a pas à demander une permission, c'est-à-dire que l'usage est public et Par exemple, pour les bitcoins, qui est une monnaie, crypto-monnaie, il n'y a pas à demander une permission à une troisième institution. Vous pouvez faire la transaction directement. De la même façon, si vous avez des informations médicales ou les diplômes, vous allez faire la transaction directement avec la personne avec laquelle vous voulez faire vos transactions. Le quatrième point, c'est trustless. Il n'y a pas de confiance. Il n'y a pas à faire confiance à une troisième personne pour que votre transaction puisse s'effectuer. Donc, la chaîne de blocs qui est là, c'est ça qui constitue votre système de confiance. Il n'y a pas une autre troisième personne comme banque, comme le notaire ou un commissionnaire pour que vous puissiez opérer votre transaction dans les propriétés, les assets que vous avez. Vous pouvez faire directement avec la personne avec laquelle vous voulez faire votre échange. Merci, James.
Thank you. So now I want to have a small demonstration on the permissionless and trustlessness effect of how Bitcoin works. You'll notice on the screen, you can see a cell phone in a red cover there. That's my associate, Michelle. She helped me put these slides together, and I appreciate the work that she did. So I'm going to transfer some ownership of my assets to her. What we're seeing on the screen is a QR code. So that is the QR code.
Yeah.
Did somebody, yep, go ahead.
Une démonstration que James va faire avec son assistante, qui est Michelle, qui a un QR code, c'est avec le cell phone. Elle va transférer, James va transférer à Michelle un asset. Merci.
Great. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to use my cell phone. I don't know if you can see my screen, but it's not very important. And then I'm going to scan her QR code right on the screen here.
Il est en train de scanner le QR code de Michelle sur l'écran.
I've scanned the code and my app is asking me how much I would like to send to her. So I'm going to put in an hourly rate.
Michelle.
It's also asking me for a note as well. And I have the opportunity to write a note, and the note will be put onto the blockchain as well with the transaction information. So today, as it stands, in order for me to send the money to her, it will cost me approximately 3 South African rands to send the transaction. I say confirm. Thank you, Michelle. I don't need the QR code anymore. And it says sent. I hope you can see that, but it's not so important. So just like that. Oh.
Une somme, Michel, ça lui a coûté 3 rands et c'est directement entre James et Michel. Il n'y a pas une troisième personne. Yes, James.
Yes. So I have sent her the money and it has been broadcast to the blockchain. Later on, we'll just take a look at how that broadcast was done and what it actually looks like on the internet. But after the miners have finished doing what they do, Michelle should register on her end that she's received the money. And that money went from me directly to her with nobody else involved in the process. And it was as easy as scanning a QR code, even on a screen. That QR code can be printed. She can give it to me. She can send it to me on WhatsApp, and I'll always be able to deposit any kind of money. I was using the Bitcoin blockchain network there. So any kind of Bitcoin into that wallet indefinitely for the foreseeable future. And the issue when it comes to transferring ownership is, how do we really know that Michelle has received that ownership? Now the blockchain, because it's easily accessible, you'd be able to follow the transactions and see, yes, confirmed, those Bitcoin have left me and they are now with Michelle.
Donc avec la chaîne des blocs, d'abord c'est transmis dans le réseau de toutes les personnes qui font partie de ces réseaux-là, pour dire que dans les blocs que M. James avait, il a transféré une portion de l'argent ou de l'asset à Michel. Et Michel, après un certain temps, les codes de Michel va aussi démontrer que la transaction a eu lieu et cela sera inscrit dans le réseau public que cette transaction s'est effectuée. Merci, James.
Thank you. So how does it work? This might be a little bit technical, but just so that we have the knowledge of it. Step one is that the data is broadcast onto the network. I say transactional data there because in this example, I sent her Bitcoin that can be converted into finances. But like I said before, any data can be broadcast onto blockchains, medical data, ownership of other assets such as gold, art, houses. The data is broadcast. The second thing that happens then is that the miners have 10 minutes to chain the block. So what it means is that that block must be connected to the block that came before it and the block that came before it, almost like a chain. And miners do this. 10 minutes is in brackets because there are many different kinds of blockchains. The Bitcoin blockchain, it takes 10 minutes to confirm a new transaction. Some blockchains can do it in a matter of seconds, but the quicker the transaction is, the less safe it is. So Bitcoin is the most safe because it takes about 10 minutes first to confirm that transaction. Now, when we compare this to traditional finance, sometimes you're sending money internationally, and it could take up to 4 days for the settlement houses to clear it. Here, Michelle will have her money in 10 minutes or less. And that goes for the same whether you're sending somebody $250 or if you're sending $250 million. That person will receive that transfer of ownership within the 10 minutes. The successful block is then permanently recorded on the public ledger, and then it cannot be changed after that. Once it's on the public ledger, many different applications can now read this data, and that's where the value starts to come into play. A company like Luno, for example, did not make the blockchain. It just connects to the blockchain and is able to show you things on your phone in a way that you're able to understand it. Many other companies can also connect to the blockchain and do something different with that information. As you'll see from the example here, you'll have block 1, for example, and block 1 will have a number of transactions listed in there. It's not just one transaction. So my transaction that was sent to Michelle maybe jumps in the bus with a number of other transactions. And then a miner will come and connect the block to the block that came before it. So after 10 minutes, block 1 is done, it's confirmed. In the next 10 minutes, block 2, transactions get on the bus, a miner comes, confirms it, and then connects it to block 1. And then the chain now has 2 blocks. And the next transaction will come, block 3 comes in, and the chain has 3 blocks. At the moment, I think we're reaching almost 6 million blocks that have been connected, but that is basically how the blockchain works in a nutshell. If there are any questions, I have a couple more slides, but if there are any questions, this is a good chance to answer maybe 1 or 2 just to make sure we're on the same page before I move to the end of the slides. Merci.
I'll just translate this part before questions. Comment est-ce que ça fonctionne avec les chaînes blocs? C'est-à-dire que quand il y a une transaction, cette transaction est distribuée dans le réseau. Et puis, le point 2, c'est qu'il y a des institutions qui créent les blocs. Ils ont 10 minutes pour enregistrer la transaction. Et enfin, au point 3, ils vont confirmer. Okay, can I see the screen? Can I see the slide again? Because it went off.
Sorry about that.
Au point 3, ils vont confirmer l'existence de la transaction dans le réseau public. C'est comme un réseau de comptabilité publique pour la chaîne de blocs. Et puis, beaucoup d'applications maintenant à travers le monde qui sont connectées à ce réseau-là, ils peuvent lire l'information que les chaînes de blocs vont publier dans le réseau public. Alors, comme exemple ici, par exemple, il y a le premier bloc, bloc 1, où il y a un nombre de transactions. Ça peut être des transactions financières, ça peut être des échanges des données de santé ou bien des données des propriétés, des maisons ou des voitures que les gens ont échangées. Et tout cela sera inscrit dans le premier bloc. Et il y aura les étapes 1, 2, 3, 4 qui se feront, par exemple, à ce bloc 1-là. Dès que c'est confirmé, ce bloc-là sera confirmé dans le réseau des blocs de la chaîne des blocs. Ensuite, donc ça, c'est après 10 minutes maintenant, c'est fermé, donc c'est publié. Après, quand il y a d'autres transactions, donc il y aura le deuxième bloc où ces transactions-là seront inscrites, confirmées, et puis, bon, arrêtées et publiées. Donc, ce bloc-là sera aussi confirmé dans le réseau, mais lié au bloc 1. Donc, on sait que dans le bloc 1, il y a eu autant de transactions, et dans le bloc 2, il y a autant de transactions, et tout ça est publié au fur et à mesure. Et à travers le monde, il y a à peu près 60 millions de blocs, et tous ces blocs sont donc en train d'échanger comme ça avec les transactions et publier à travers le réseau de la chaîne de blocs. Et ensuite, les applications diverses qui font l'exploitation des chaînes de blocs publient ça afin que les usagers puissent comprendre. Ils font l'interprétation de ces données-là qui sont dans les blocs, dans les chaînes de blocs, afin que les usagers puissent les comprendre et que ça puisse les servir dans leurs propres transactions. Merci, James. Bon, s'il y a des questions, c'est le meilleur moment de poser des questions. James a demandé s'il y a des questions, vous pouvez maintenant poser. Merci. James, there is a question there. There's Dr. Makinga.
Okay. Is it in the chat?
No, I think you'll talk. Dr. Makinga.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Yeah, my question is actually about on this particular last slide. When you say, for instance, in block 1, there is transaction 1, 2, and other transaction. Do this transaction belong to one person, or it belongs to different persons? If it belongs to different person, who decide at the certain stage to say, okay, this block is now full, let me open a second block and so on? Who's gonna, because if it's for different person, then there should be maybe somebody who's at the end there who said, okay, now this is full, let's open a second one. That's my first question. My second question is that you said this is broadcast for the public. It's distributed actually in the network and it's for public view. Now, if it's for public view, doesn't it take away that, you know, secrecy which we are running away from, or I could say that public nature we are running away from the banks, where the banks can give your information to other people, identity theft and so on. So if this can be accessed by everyone, doesn't it come back to the same situation? We are running away from the banks. Thank you. I hope it makes sense. I'm not very good in, I don't know blockchain myself here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Yes, it does make sense. And I'll try and answer it to the best of my ability. So the blocks are limited by size, data size, almost like if you have a hard drive. If you can put 15 low quality photos on the hard drive before it gets full, or you might only be able to put one high definition video on the hard drive before it gets full. So it depends on the weight and the mass. So when it comes to transactions, the one that I sent to Michelle, unfortunately for her, it wasn't in the multiple millions, what I sent to her. So I'll be able to fit in that block. And a number of other small transactions will also be able to fit in that block. So it is possible that a block can have a single transaction if the size of the transaction is very, very big. It's possible, but it's not frequent. And I think your other question was who decides who gets into which block. So you can almost imagine it to be like a bus stop with a lot of people waiting at the bus stop. Those who are faster will get into the bus quickly, but there's always another bus coming. So there might be a queue of transactions that are waiting to get onto the block. The block is confirmed, the bus leaves, another bus is right behind it, other people get inside. What determines speed? Internet speed, I would say. So where I am, I've got a good enough internet speed. So because my transaction is small, first of all, and because my internet speed is good, it's broadcast onto the network. So I'll have a good chance of running into the bus very quickly. But even if my internet was slow, it wouldn't take longer than the normal current financial traditional systems for me to actually get into the bus. I actually have a visualization of how that works, which I'm going to show you later, and it will definitely answer that question a lot better than I did. And then your second question is just around the identity and the anonymity of these transactions. So the number of transactions, the volume, how big the transactions are, and where they are from and where they are going, that is public knowledge. But who owns the wallet, where it's going to, we don't know, because that information is not broadcast onto the network. So if I were to open up the blockchain, I could see, okay, 2 million went from this wallet address. That's a long list of letters and numbers. And it went to this wallet address, a long list of letters and numbers. I don't know who those people are. I don't know where they live. I won't be able to really pinpoint that to a person unless there's a company that collects KYC information and then can say, we can tell you that this account belongs to this individual because they gave us their KYC information before they joined our platform, and we linked that information. The wallet that Michelle showed you is completely anonymous. She did not have to KYC to get into that. So once that money goes to her, she can go on holiday, she can do what she wants. Nobody will know that she received that money. For me, I sent it to her using a platform called Luno. Luno does do KYC and extended due diligence, so they know who I am. They know that I've sent out money. And if I were to do any illicit activities, I'm sure they would comply with the authorities. But that is just because Luno built their platform on the blockchain that way. If I wanted to hide, I could probably find other ways, other platforms that don't ask for that KYC information, and we could do it. Definitely more about crime and illicit activities that we'll talk about at a later stage. I hope that was able to give you some insight. If you still have further questions on that one, maybe we can take care of it at the end of the session, if you don't mind. Merci.
La question était de savoir qui détermine les blocs et comment est-ce que ça se remplit. Donc, il a expliqué que c'est comme si vous êtes dans une station de bus où les transactions arrivent et quand le bus est plein, les transactions vont. Les transactions sont sur Internet. Donc, cela dépend aussi de votre vitesse d'Internet ou de la dimension de vos activités. Pour des petites activités, ça peut se faire très vite. Pour les grandes activités, ça peut prendre un peu de temps, mais tout cela va très vite sur Internet. Pour ce qui est de connaître qui fait quelle transaction, ce n'est pas possible, même si les blocs sont dans un réseau public. Vous allez seulement connaître que les blocs sont en train d'être interchangés avec des entités, à moins que ces entités-là puissent faire l'enregistrement des propriétaires, puisque certaines compagnies le font, comme la transaction qu'il a opérée là. Mais pour la plupart, c'est difficile que les personnes qui sont sur la plateforme puissent identifier qui est le propriétaire de la transaction. I think there's another, il va faire une démonstration de comment les transactions vont. Ça, c'est une explication. I think there is another question that will be coming just when you finish. I see there is a hand with Mr. Mira. Yes, thanks, James.
Thank you very much. Yeah, definitely. I can see that we're reaching the end of our time. So I would want to make sure I finish the presentation and I'll stay afterwards for questions. This might be a good time just to take a look at the transaction that happened between myself and Michelle and look at what it looks like on the side of the blockchain. Like I said, I used Luno to send the money. There are many different platforms, many different applications that you can use to send money. This is not the only one, but it was just convenient for this session. So it will show the amount of Bitcoin that I sent to her, 0.000622251. We can see it's decimal places because the cost of one Bitcoin right now is about 400,000 Rand or 23,000 US dollars. And there's the timestamp, there's the approximate value in ZAR, and here is the transaction. This is what's the most important. If I click on that, every Bitcoin transaction will have a transactional history like that, for example. If I click on that, we can then see over here, this is the blockchain, basically, the blockchain explorer. So I'm going to change it to USD. In the block where my Bitcoin, the bus which my Bitcoin got into, there was a total of 76, around about 80,000 US dollars got into that bus. And we will see here, one of these transactions will be Michelle's transaction. I think it's this one over here. So as you can see, money left this wallet, and was distributed to these wallets over here in various forms. One person sent $4, somebody else sent $38,000, etc., etc. And here is Michelle. As you can see, if we open up that wallet, we can even explore it some more. And the blockchain will tell us that there's only been one transaction on this wallet. This is the amount that has been received. No money has been sent out of this wallet at all. All of this public and open information creates value for the financial institutions. However, Michelle's name is not here, so she's still anonymous. I hope that also shows an answer to the question. She's still anonymous. There's no way to really track who this wallet belongs to unless you do some very, very, very extended investigations, which that would probably be reserved for Interpol or things like that. We can see a lot more information here. Some of this information might not really register, but as we go along, as we have conversations, we'll see what matters. Here's the status of this block. It has been confirmed. This transaction currently has 3 confirmations, which means that 3 miners have validated the information and said, this is real. All that money that was in that one wallet is now in these other wallets. The miners have done their work. I think that was actually less than 10 minutes. Over here, you'll see the size. So that's about 0.5 megabyte. So there was still space for more transactions to get in here, but no one really entered the bus on time. And yeah, there it is, all of the blockchain in the back. I have another visualization before we move on. This is another application that was built on the blockchain. I was talking about value coming in because of applications that are built on top of the blockchain. So this is blockchain visualizer. What it does is it creates visual images based off of that information that we just saw. Sorry, my earphones have gone flat. Based off of the information that we've seen, what we're looking at here on the right-hand side, you'll see Bitcoin, and we're comparing it to the Ethereum blockchain on the left-hand side. This represents the block, so that is the bus. Over here, we can see Ethereum blocks. Ethereum runs a number of blocks at the same time. Here are all of the individual, each little person represented here is an individual transaction. So here are all of the individual Ethereum transactions, which are waiting at the bus stop for the blocks to be confirmed. And here are all the Bitcoin transactions that are taking place right now. All these transactions entering the current block that is about to take off once it's full and a new bus will come. So what we can already see from what we're looking at here is that Ethereum has a lot more transactions per second than Bitcoin does. And the reason that happens we'll probably explain later when we talk about cryptocurrency actually, but this is a very nice way to actually see how the network is operating, because there's no moment where no transactions are taking place when it comes to cryptocurrency. The same website has various statistics here, which will show you, for example, in 24 hours, this is the volume of Bitcoin that has been transacted with. Those are a lot of numbers. It looks like billions to me. I think you guys as bankers will be able to recognize that that's a big number. And yeah, that's only in the last 24 hours. That's how much money has moved. You'll also see the last block happened 10 seconds ago. All those buses have left, and a new block is now being mined. And all these transactions are jumping into the block to take place. I hope you can find that interesting. That link will be shared with you. So anytime you want to take a look at the buses and to see how the cryptocurrency financial system is happening, you can definitely open that link and have a look. I'm just going to kind of push through the remaining slides because, you know, I don't want to keep you guys away from your Sunday dinners. But this is a slide. Oh,
James,
sorry, carry on. Yes.
James a juste expliqué comment l'image des bus où les transactions montent dans le bus et quand le bus est plein et le bus part. C'était l'image, il y a les transactions qui entrent dans les blocs, les chaînes de blocs. Et puis quand c'est plein, la chaîne là, ou bien après les 10 minutes, la chaîne, le bloc va partir et puis un autre bloc va commencer à se former. Normalement, notre session se termine à 18 h. Donc, quand nous devons dépasser, nous demandons seulement l'indulgence de nos membres, selon que le sujet est très intéressant de temps en temps. Donc, nous allons demander, s'il vous plaît, 15 minutes pour que James puisse terminer son explication. Merci beaucoup, James.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much. I was actually just impressed with how many transactions are taking place at the moment. Okay, this slide is one of my favorites. This is according to Deloitte. They did a survey on the current industry, and what we're seeing here are the use cases. This is in 2002 for the blockchain. So the percentages on the side there represent the percentage of that industry that is built upon the blockchain. So digital currency is obviously at the top. Currently, globally, 33% of all digital currency runs on blockchain technology. And then in second place, you'll see data access and sharing, just the way we were able to go onto the blockchain and see all of that information. The very same way the application with all of the buses is able to pull so much real-time data. Data sharing is a big thing, and 32% of all of the data that's online now is operating on some kind of blockchain. Data reconciliation, same goes for identity protection. 30% of all payments that happen currently are happening on some kind of blockchain network. Certification, asset transfer right at the bottom, you can see 25%. And last year, there was a house in the Netherlands that was sold completely off cryptocurrency. The buyer sent Bitcoin to the seller, and the seller recorded that the house no longer belongs to him and belongs to the buyer on the blockchain as well. So there were no needs to involve bonds, no need to record it at a deeds office or anything like that, because the ownership of that house is permanently recorded on the internet, where anybody, any authority figure, any police, whoever is in power at the time and is concerned, will be able to validate that this house belongs to this person and not this person instead. There's an immense amount of value there, of course, because if you want to transfer an asset, sometimes it's very expensive. There are many intermediaries for our own security who we have to pay to make sure we all agree that the house is mine and no one is going to come to my house and claim I never really paid them. So these are some of the use cases. Blockchain goes much further than digital currency. I myself am a diabetic. Sometimes I change doctors and they ask me for my medical records. It'll be very easy for me to one day upload all of my medical records onto some kind of blockchain and give access to certain doctors to be able to open it and track and trace my health, etc., etc. Merci.
OK, ici, c'est une démonstration des pourcentages d'usage des chaînes de blocs à travers les différentes industries mondiales. On voit que pour la crypto-monnaie, c'est 33%, pour l'échange d'informations, bases de données, il y a 32%. Il y a des gens qui font la réconciliation d'informations, qui font la protection des les paiements ou de la traçabilité. Il y a la protection des assiettes. Donc, des assets. Il y a beaucoup d'utilité, d'utilisation de la technologie de la chaîne de blocs. Et lui-même, il dit qu'il est diabétique, donc il serait intéressant qu'un jour, toutes les données médicales peuvent être sur une plateforme de la chaîne des blocs pour que si vous voulez partager avec les médecins, ce sera plus facile et ce sera plus direct avec la personne concernée. Merci, James.
Thank you. Now I want to take a moment, this is my final slide, to just talk about how we got here, how we got to a stage where blockchain technology is relevant, and also where we might go in the future. So the future of ownership is how I titled this slide, because at its core, when we talk about the blockchain, we're basically talking about agreeing who owns an asset, whether that asset is a currency, a digital currency, a token, a coin. The blockchain can also be used to record something like who owns a song or the royalties to a piece of art. It can also, if you have a lot of gold stored somewhere overseas, you can mark that gold and it will be registered on the blockchain that you are the person who owns it. So in 1994, that's when we got our first mainstream adoption of the internet. And this is what specialists are now calling Web 1. And it was built off of a system called HTTP, which is a programming language that allows you to broadcast. So it allows you to put information onto a network where people can read that information, almost like a Wikipedia page or an encyclopedia. So the internet back then was a bunch of static screens. Like you open a page, you can read it, you can move to the next page and read what's there. Web 1 was for consumption. We as the people would consume that knowledge, and we had access to things that we might not have had access before. And then I think maybe that's a good place to translate, and then I'll move on to Web 2. Merci.
Sorry, I was off. I think you can finish the 3, then I'll
Okay.
Thanks.
Perfect. In 2004, Web 2 was introduced, or the internet evolved. And then programming languages like Java and HTML were created. And this changed the internet from reading to reading and writing. Web 2 enabled us to have applications like Facebook or Instagram or even WhatsApp, which we might take for granted. These applications would not exist if we did not have the internet. So the internet is what birthed something like Facebook, YouTube, etc., etc. All of these things were built as a layer on top of what already existed. And it just changed it to a point where I can now upload my picture on the internet. I'm no longer just reading what the internet is doing. I can upload my pictures on the internet. I can upload my videos on the internet for everybody to collaborate with. I can make these slides and share these slides with you. And Web 2 then became consumption and also creation, because we could create certain things. Now, Web 3, where we are heading to, is more about ownership. And this is because of blockchain and smart contracts. Now, as a person who has access to the internet, I can read things on the internet. I can write, which means I can edit things on the internet, but also I can own things on the internet, and I can participate in the internet. So if I were to upload my video onto YouTube, in Web3, that data will be housed. YouTube is the wrong thing to say, actually, because that's Web2. In Web3, if I wanted to upload a video onto the internet, I could upload it rather than onto YouTube, where YouTube is a central figure that owns that video or has the power to distribute it. This video would be uploaded onto the blockchain, and anybody might be able to interact with that blockchain, and we would then be able to commoditize that video, which means if you open my video and you watch it, I am due certain coins or tokens. And because I own that video and it can be marked to my name, I can own the royalties of that video, etc., etc. I can join certain groups that might be building things around the blockchain as well. I'd be able to be paid directly for any services, the way Michelle was paid directly. As an example of Web3, Twitter is looking to allow individuals, when they like or share one of their posts, to send a small donation to them as well. And the money goes straight into their account. It doesn't go via Twitter to them. So this is how we got here. And this is how blockchain fits in to internet technology. In conclusion, I'd just like to say we have always moved everything from physical to digital. The only thing that hasn't really completely gone digital is our money and our ownership. How do we interact in this world that is not here, physical, it's behind a screen in a commercial way? I hope that's clear. Merci.
Yes, I hope our food will move to the internet. OK, ce qu'il disait, c'est que en 1994, on avait la première version d'Internet où c'était simplement une présentation consommateur. Il n'y avait pas moyen d'échanger. Après 10 ans, il y avait l'Internet 2, les Web 2, où les consommateurs pouvaient non pas seulement lire, mais aussi écrire. C'est ainsi que nous avons maintenant l'option de partager les photos, les vidéos, par exemple sur les applications Facebook, comme WhatsApp. C'est ça le Web2 qui nous permet d'échanger de la sorte. Alors, le futur de la propriété fait qu'avec le Web3, il y a quand même une transition déjà. Il y aura la possibilité que les chaînes de blocs et les contrats smart puissent être une propriété des personnes. Non pas seulement nous saurons lire et écrire, mais nous aurons l'opportunité de posséder des biens, des assets et aussi de participer à des transactions directement qui se font sur Internet. Par exemple, Twitter est en train de chercher des voies où ils sont en train d'essayer, si vous démontrez, vous likez quelque chose, ils peuvent vous payer directement quelque chose dans votre compte sans passer par une autre personne. Voilà donc, James, I think, yes, you can go on now.
Thank you very much.
Questions there, so I think we have Mr. Mira and a few other questions on the chat. I think you can go with Mr. Mira first before. Oh, je vois, donc il a partagé certains liens. On va, c'est beaucoup. We will capture this. On va prendre l'écran et puis on va essayer de partager avec les membres. Je crois que on peut prendre notre 5 minutes. Mr. Muira, votre question, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you very much, Mr. Your name again is?
It's James.
James.
Yes.
Okay. I'm so excited, and your presentation was very clear, and it was very nice. My question is this: I'm involved in a kind of project of NFT. So it was bring to my attention that those NFT that we are creating on that project should be on blockchain. Can you explain to us how is working. If the NFT are on blockchain, how can we sell them, and how the transaction can be? How the ownership be protected on blockchain? This is my simple question. I don't know if you can just respond to that.
Thank you very much for your question. It's a very good question. NFTs are very new. Unlike the blockchain we see, which is also very new, we're going back to 2009. NFTs are even younger. So when we're dealing with these things in their infancy stage, it's difficult to actually answer all the questions around it. And on top of that, art is also very complicated in terms of human nature, because how do you value something that someone drew versus something that somebody else drew? It's very subjective. So it's another difficult thing. The other thing is, if you go to an art gallery and you see the piece of art there, we are trusting that the gallery is showing you the original and not a copy. But at the same time, you're free to take out your phone and take a picture and go home and maybe ask somebody to recreate it or print it, or you have the enjoyment of the art because you can see it on your phone. Maybe it's not the original, but you can see it, so you're having a good time. People have spoken about NFTs as well, saying, you might sell your NFT to someone and I'll come and take a screenshot and we have the same thing. So why would you want to pay money for the NFT if we can both have the same digital picture? But what NFTs have brought to our attention is how important agreeing on ownership is. So the art itself, the NFT, might not have much value for the way it looks, but the fact that you are the owner, you might then be able to have certain rights that people who have fake art do not have. And I think there was a question actually in the chat about ownership as well. And I like that question. We'll move into it for sure. But take, for example, if I'm a record producer and I say the original owner of this NFT can now come to my concerts for free for life. Yes, second person might have a screenshot and might be able to show people the same art, but they won't have those benefits that you have because you're able to prove real and genuine ownership. So when it comes to really making money off of NFTs, it's important to be able to give people the image, but the image should actually just be a representation of other benefits that this individual is buying. Outside of that, of course, when it comes to art, sometimes the image is enough because it's just that beautiful and you've touched someone emotionally that they are willing to pay a very high price just to know that this is mine and I'm able to transfer it to whoever I want to. There's a platform called OpenSea at the moment that enables you to mint your NFT, to put it up. I'm not sure how far you are in your project yet, but OpenSea is a market. So people will come see the art and they will buy it with Ethereum and send it. In actual fact, this bus that we were looking at also has an OpenSea transaction. Where is it? Ethereum.
Okay, James, what is NFT?
An NFT.
Non-fungible token.
Yes.
Yeah, because you went and both of you talked, and I'm not sure the majority.
That is definitely one of the tricky parts of cryptocurrency, is that you can go on a massive tangent. Just before we move on, over here, this bus thing here. NFTs are built off of the Ethereum network. So it's the Ethereum blockchain. So we're looking at the Ethereum blockchain. All of these are transactions getting in. And here is OpenSea, which is one of the Ethereum networks where NFTs are sold. So as you'll see, the market is moving. Each one of these transactions that's being updated live is a piece of art that's being sold to somebody, and they're buying and they're selling, basically. To dive deeper into NFT, it is basically a non-fungible token. So it's a piece of data, if I can put it plainly. It's a piece of data which might look like art, but that data will have a fingerprint, and the fingerprint will be assigned to one specific person. So if an artist creates something and puts it up, an individual can buy it, and we will have consensus, which is what the blockchain does, is it provides a way for all of us to agree that a particular individual owns this one NFT. And art collectors, it works just like art, right? If you are buying a painting from Picasso while he was still alive, some people might say you're wasting money because it's just a pretty picture. But then years later, you'll sell the same picture for a lot more. And it's not very easy to really determine or define why the piece of art appreciated and why another one depreciated. So, you know, it's just, please go ahead.
James, it means that each NFT have a number on the blockchain. It's the thing I wanted just to understand is that how is it going to be on blockchain? And can it be moved away from blockchain, or once it's there, it cannot be removed? Or you see the way you are saying that people are getting in the bus. Is it a way you can take out the NFT from the blockchain?
So the reason people actually pay more for NFTs than they would for a normal picture is because they want everyone to know that it belongs to them. Oh. And currently, the only way to have this consensus, which we're talking about, a way where globally everyone knows, is either you go to an authority institution, a central institution, where they will maybe record it like a house in the deeds office and say, anyone who comes here, we will confirm that this belongs to Mr. Miti. So there is currently no technology that can give the consensus the way blockchain does. So once you remove the NFT from the blockchain, for example, then how do you prove that you have the original? So art is being added to the blockchain just so that the whole world can know who owns what without us having to find a central institution who we agree with. Take houses, for example. When we buy a house, I think we believe it's the government who's protecting us from somebody else claiming the house. So we are protected by the law enforcement. If someone else comes and sleeps in your house, you can call the police, but the police must go somewhere to know that the house is yours and you're not actually the thief who has called. In certain cases, the government doesn't want to get involved in these things, or they cannot get involved, or maybe in certain cases, you're working globally, so you're dealing with multiple governments. So how do you make this global system where we now know, okay, ownership belongs to who it belongs to? You know, it's in its infancy stages. So art is a nice way to get people to start thinking about bigger concepts. And the bigger concept is actually ownership and global agreement. So NFTs are helping us think that way. And thus, you know, there's this big craze about it. But we're all hoping that it will one day move to things like, you know, property, houses, other assets. Bitcoin itself in South Africa has been classified as a risk asset. So it is an asset. So even when I send what I send to Michelle, even though it's not tangible, I'm still transferring ownership. And that can go about the same with maybe food that you've stored somewhere, maybe a piece of art now, etc., etc. How to make money off NFTs? Make beautiful pictures, put a good story behind it. You can upload it onto OpenSea. People will see it. People will buy it. It's just a normal market like that. You know, I'm not an artist myself, but if you go to an artist here, they'll probably give you many different ideas. And, you know, all that is different is that, okay, once you've got your concept, then you can put it up. Some people sell NFTs like 3D models. So they'll build a house online. It will look like a house. You can buy that as an NFT, and then you can buy the small pieces of furniture to put in this house digitally. So one would say, what's the point of that? But if I created this house and I created it unique, and you want to buy a dollhouse for your niece or your granddaughter, these little girls are not playing with real dollhouses anymore. Now they're doing everything on computers. So their friends are not even coming to the house to look at the dollhouse and play with them. Their friends are online in Sweden, and they're showing their friends, look at my house, it's very pretty. You can come in my house and you can see all of my nice furniture. And the person who designed the furniture, drew the images and things like that, is getting money because they only made one. So no one else will have a TV in their make-believe house the way other girls or other neighbors have. And then that creates, you know, that pride. So NFTs are pretty limitless. It's just about what do we value as humans. But I can say for sure, if I were to buy an NFT house for my niece, she would love me very much. And she would show off that she's the only one who has that house.
Yeah,
And
thank you
nobody
very
else
much.
has one like
Yeah,
that.
I think
Okay.
you can, yeah.
All right. James et Monsieur Kaindo étaient en train de parler des non-fungible tokens. Ce sont des jetons qui sont non dégradables, si on peut dire, mais qui sont en train d'être formés sur la plateforme des blocs de Chaine. Ce qui fait qu'il y a beaucoup de choses qui peuvent être créées, surtout avec les artistes maintenant. Vous pouvez créer, des objets d'art, vous pouvez créer, vous pouvez avoir des créations artistiques que vous enregistrez sur des plateformes de blocs de Chaine avec un tampon, un stamp, et ça devient quelque chose d'unique qui vous appartient et que vous pouvez vendre sur les publics, comme ce marché public à OpenSea, où les gens sont en train de créer des objets d'art et puis ils sont en train de les enregistrer, d'abord sur la chaîne des blocs, et puis le monde entier connaîtra que cet objet-là ou cette création vous appartient, et que si les gens veulent soit le voir, soit l'acheter, vous serez la personne à qui il faudrait s'adresser pour l'obtenir, pour l'acheter ou même pour voir. Donc, c'est très intéressant. Merci pour la question. Donc, la plateforme ici, c'est des artistes qui ont créé des objets et qui sont en train de les vendre. Donc, si vous êtes, vous voulez acheter, vous pouvez aller sur cette plateforme, vous achetez et la personne qui vend va perdre la propriété et vous deviendrez maintenant le propriétaire de cet objet d'art. Voilà, là, il y a un objet qui coûte 340 000 $, c'est vraiment beaucoup. Et donc, on ne sait pas qui apprécie, c'est les personnes qui sont sur la plateforme apprécient le prix et ça peut augmenter selon l'offre et la demande. Quelle est la beauté de cet objet d'art? Personne ne connaît, mais tellement que ça a pris de l'élan, donc ça devient cher. Pourquoi? Parce qu'il y a maintenant un tampon qui démontre qui est le propriétaire de cette photo. Même si vous prenez une photo de cette photo, vous pouvez la montrer à des gens, mais vous ne pourriez pas faire des transactions sur cette photo parce que ça ne vous appartient pas. Donc, c'est très intéressant comme plateforme, la blockchain. Mr. James, I think I'm really pushed to stop you here. We've gone 30 minutes beyond. It is extra interesting. C'est extrêmement intéressant. Je sais que même les membres ne seront pas contents qu'on puisse suspendre, mais le temps est vraiment largement dépassé. Je crois qu'il y a une autre question sur la plateforme. Si vous pouvez répondre à cette question-là.
May
Yes.
I just answer the one question that was in the chat because it was on my mind? And it was a two-part question. Thank you for allowing me. It was a two-part question. One was regulation. How do we handle regulation? And the second one was, why are there transaction fees? So when I referred to confirming a block previously, and I said the miner has 10 minutes to mine, it's a crypto term. We call them miners. But what it is it's the computer that validates the block and adds it to say, yes, this transaction is true. Now, in order to do that, in order to continuously update the blockchain system, computers need to upload and do certain calculations. And you set up your computer to mine cryptocurrency because as an individual, I'm hoping that I'll be rewarded for that. So the transaction fee goes to the computer that was able to solve the problem and connect the block. And then it creates this competition where all these various computers around the world are trying to get the reward for putting that one block on and get their own Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Yes, we're trying to cut out the middleman with this. We're trying to reduce costs. If I were to go to Blockchain Explorer, you would see that there are millions that's moving across the world for less than $5. So it's not free, but it's definitely, if you're trying to move 400 mil, here's a good real life example. El Salvador adopted Bitcoin as legal tender, and then all their remittance payments stopped going through Western Union and started going through the blockchain. And within 24 hours, Western Union lost 4 billion worth of revenue, just because that's how much money is moving into El Salvador. And the money that was moved into El Salvador cost less than $400 to send all of that money. So it is a lot cheaper because, of course, banks have overheads. They need to pay for my nice suit. They need to pay for the call center staff, and we need to pay them for their accountability for if something goes wrong on their ledgers. The computer software, just like any other computer software, robots, artificial intelligence, is replacing the human aspect of recording all of that data with a system software. And that incentive to build a computer that can do this is that blockchain reward, that Bitcoin reward, which is not that high. Secondly, it's decentralized, so anyone can participate, which is just a much better vision than JP Morgan has a monopoly on all transactions that go via the US. Here, any one of us might be the one benefiting from that block. If I set up a miner, I might have even been the one to benefit from that block. So I send money to Michelle, and then I get the transaction fee myself because my computer is the one that did it. But I mean, of course, like you said, we've sort of run out of time. When it comes to regulation, the second question, it is just a force of nature. Money, taxes, and laws are a force of nature. So the governments have been slow to catch up, but regulation is the main objective for all governments this year. You'll see SARS has done a lot of work there. So has the US. That house was transferred because the Netherlands is very pro-crypto. So they acknowledge the blockchain as an actual true source of ownership, and they would enforce that ownership just by checking on the blockchain. But not all countries are like that, of course. Not all countries have that technological advancement. But when it comes to regulations, I can't really speak on that. We'll see, is all we can say. And yeah, that's all from me. Yeah, I hope I answered the question.
Thank you so much. James a expliqué que les transactions sont moins chères sur la plateforme de Blocs de Chaine. Par exemple, pour 400 millions de dollars qui s'échangent, les frais peuvent être moins que 500 dollars, alors que des gens comme JP Morgan, qui sont des grandes banques, ou bien ceux qui font des transferts d'argent comme MoneyGram et les autres, ils font beaucoup de millions. Par exemple, à El Salvador, qui a adopté la chaîne des blocs, ça fait que les compagnies qui transfèrent l'argent ont perdu beaucoup de millions. Et pour ce qui est des régulations pour la bloc de Chaine, la chaîne de blocs, les compagnies, les nations ont été très lentes dans la formation des lois et des régulations, mais ils sont en train de les expédier à travers le monde, même ici en Afrique du Sud ou en Europe. Maintenant, il y a les institutions publiques qui sont en train de régulariser les situations pour ce qui est de la chaîne de blocs. James, I think with the trend that I see here, I'll ask that we have 2 hours in 2 weeks, because that will be cryptocurrency. I think you will have a lot more questions, as we know from our community. So thank you so much for the brilliant explanation, and I will personally thank you for avoiding the temptation of crypting into currencies just today. I know it is very attractive. So, merci beaucoup à tous nos membres et la communauté. Dans 2 semaines, nous aurons notre session sur la crypto-monnaie. J'ai demandé à James qu'il puisse préparer 2 heures au lieu d'1 heure, parce que sûrement nous aurons beaucoup plus de questions sur la crypto-monnaie et qu'il va partager avec nous. Ici, c'est un exemple où El Salvador a transféré 400 millions avec Western Union qui faisait beaucoup d'argent, mais maintenant ils ont perdu parce que El Salvador a adopté la crypto-monnaie pour les transactions. Yes, you please talk to Mr. Njeka for James' contact. I don't have it. C'est notre secrétaire qui est en train d'arranger tous les contacts. Donc, si vous voulez parler à James, vous pouvez parler à M. Njeka, il va vous connecter. Les raisons de tous ces échanges, c'est que nous puissions mettre les experts en contact avec nos membres pour qu'ils puissent partager de l'expertise. Et CoopCongo est toujours très content quand nous avons des experts comme ça qui partagent. Merci beaucoup pour ce partage, James. Merci beaucoup pour votre volonté d'aider la communauté congolaise à comprendre toutes ces technologies, toutes ces bousculades qui se font dans notre vie moderne. Thank you so much to everyone. In 2 weeks' time, we will have 2 hours with cryptocurrencies. James Miti will lead us in that, and I'm sure it will also be very interesting. Sorry for taking another 30 minutes extra, 35 minutes actually. So it's first time we go to 35 minutes, James. So,
what an honor.
It is just prudent for us to get to 2 hours in 2 weeks' time. We will broadcast that it will be 2 hours so that our members can benefit. Merci beaucoup à tous nos membres et à la communauté. Nous vous remercions pour votre participation à cette soirée. Merci et bon nouveau mois de août que nous allons commencer à partir de demain. Bonne soirée.